Hello, I'm delighted to welcome you to join me and listen to Search for Truth, our Bible study programme with your teacher, Brian Johnston. Thanks for sharing your time with me, and we've study number 2 in our series of studies called This is Our God, the Sacrificial Lamb. A reminder that this is in 2 parts, this series. The first 4 week studies are called Behold the Lamb, and then 6 more studies called Behold Your God. That's 10 weeks in all, and today programme 2 is called The Perpetual Incense of Prayer. Now, if you want to study these talks more deeply, it might be helpful to have a copy of Brian's script, and you can acquire this by downloading a free copy if you go to churchesofgod.info/media. And I'll be reminding you again of that address later in the programme, but now let's go to Brian for the perpetual incense of prayer.
Thanks, John. We've been reviewing the daily sacrifice or offering up of 2 lambs in Israel, and we've paid special attention to the timings of these events. The actual sacrifices were at the 3rd and 9th hours of each day. In this study, we want to ask, what else was coincidental at those specific times? Well, we'll read in a moment that the trimming of lamps and the offering of incense were taking place inside the tabernacle or temple at those designated times of morning and evening. But what's more, outside the temple, these 2 offerings were the signal for the 2 main prayer services centred on the temple. Let's check all that out. From Exodus chapter 29 we read, "Now this is what you shall offer on the altar, 2 one-year-old lambs each day continuously. The 1 lamb you shall offer in the morning, the other lamb you shall offer at twilight, for a soothing aroma, an offering by fire to the Lord. It shall be a continual burnt offering throughout your generations at the doorway of the tent of meeting before the Lord, where I will meet with you to speak to you there." Verses 38 through 42. That was obviously taking place on the copper altar situated outside the door of the tent of meeting, or in later times, the permanent temple structure. But we ask ourselves, what was happening inside the tent or temple at the same time? Here we have it from the very next chapter of the book of Exodus. "Aaron shall burn fragrant incense on it. He shall burn it every morning when he trims the lamps. And when Aaron sets up the lamps at twilight, he shall burn incense. There shall be perpetual incense before the Lord throughout your generations." Exodus 30, verses 7 and 8. You'll have noticed the mention of morning and twilight in both these readings that concern 2 continual or perpetual things, namely the lambs on the outside copper altar and the incense on the inside golden altar. These coincident events involved only the priests. But we've been thinking how this perpetual lamb sacrifice was a communal or community sacrifice. In other words, it was on behalf of the whole congregation of God's people, although of course it was administered by the priests. What then were the ordinary people doing at the same time as the priests were occupied with these sacred duties, both inside and outside the temple? We get help in answering this question in the Old Testament, but it's perhaps clearest in the New Testament. Let's read from the 1st chapter of Luke's Gospel, where the initial reference is to a priest by the name of Zechariah. "Now it happened that while he was performing his priestly duty before God in the appointed order of his division, according to the custom of the priestly office, he was chosen by lot to enter the temple of the Lord and burn incense. And the whole multitude of the people were in prayer outside at the hour of the incense offering." That's Luke 1, verses 8 through 10. I want you to make a careful note, mainly of that last part, where it talked about the whole multitude of the people praying outside the temple at the time of the incense offering that was engaging Zechariah the priest as he carried out his priestly duty inside the temple. There's another reference by the same author, but this time in the book of Acts, to a time when Peter and John were going up to the temple at the 9th hour, the hour of prayer. Acts 3 verse 1. In that verse, the time is given as the 9th hour. This, we've seen, was the timing of the offering of the 2nd daily lamb. It was also, coincidentally, the time of the trimming of lamps and offering of incense inside the temple. And now we can add that it was also the time of daily congregational prayer by the people gathered around outside the temple. In fact, on the occasion we read about in Luke's Gospel chapter 1, Zechariah the priest had encountered an angel in the course of his duty of offering incense. His interaction with the angel who had come to tell him that he would shortly become the father of John the Baptist took some time, such that we read, "And meanwhile the people were waiting for Zechariah and were wondering at his delay in the temple." Luke 1 verse 21. From that we can conclude that those who were praying outside had joined up all the dots, as we might say. What do I mean by that? Well, only that they were aware of and following the progress of the priest as he entered and exited the temple for the incense offering. They would also see the smoke ascending from the sacrificial lamb on the outside altar. All this at the very time they gathered for prayer. Now, although we said this is perhaps spelt out most clearly in these New Testament references, we did say there's also the clear hint of such joining of the dots given in the Old Testament. Take David's words in Psalm 141, where he says, "May my prayer be counted as incense before you, the raising up of my hands as the evening offering." Psalm 141 verse 2. The raising or lifting up of the psalmist's hands is describing his posture in prayer. And so in that way, in this single verse, David's thought unites together prayer, the incense offering, and the evening lamb sacrifice. Entirely in keeping with this biblical analysis, Jewish writers have commented, consistently every morning and evening, when the lamb was being placed on the altar by assigned priests, other priests were tending to the menorah or the lampstand, trimming the wicks, removing the soot, and replenishing the olive oil to keep the menorah burning brightly until the next time of offering. The coordination of preparing the lamb, the gathering and positioning of the hot coals, the tending to the wicks and oil, and the placing of the incense on the golden altar were perfectly timed to be simultaneous. This was not done haphazardly, but timed to consistently happen at the same time every day, the 3rd hour and the 9th hour. We wish to repeat that these coincident events acted as if they were the two bookends of each and every Old Testament day. The perpetual sacrifice, whereby the two lambs were treated as one, opened the day's offerings and closed it. Now we're adding that these two offerings were the foundation for the two main prayer services in the Jewish temple. This perpetual sacrifice was connected to the rising and setting of the sun, as implied by the words of the psalmist. From the rising of the sun to its setting, the name of the Lord is to be praised. Psalm 113 verse 3. The rising of the sun would take us to the 1st hour of the day, the dawn, when the first of the two lambs was tethered and given a drink in preparation for its offering up at the 3rd hour. And the setting of the sun takes us to the other end of the day, sundown, at the 12th hour, as the lamb of the 9th hour was already ascending in smoke from the altar. In summary, we say again that for as long as the temple stood, the perpetual sacrifice was a public offering for the entire community of Israel. Every morning and evening, meaning 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. by our way of reckoning, the congregation of Israel offered up a lamb as a whole burnt offering. During the time of the public perpetual sacrifice at the temple, every morning and evening, regardless of where God's people resided in the ancient world, Israelites, we're told by Jewish sources, recited a series of blessings or prayers known as the 18 benedictions. It is said that this meant the whole of Israel was united in praising God as the mighty Redeemer of Israel, pleading with the Lord to heal their afflictions, asking to be granted pardon and forgiveness for their transgressions, for the nation of Israel to flourish, for salvation to be realized, and ultimately for the resurrection of the dead. At 9 a.m. and again at 3 p.m., the people lifted their voices toward heaven and asked God to intercede on their behalf as a nation. According to Alfred Edersheim, he says it is not correct to designate sacrifices as prayers without words. The sacrifices were in no sense prayers, but rather the preparation for prayer. The tabernacle, as also the later temples, was, as its Hebrew designation shows, the place of meeting between God and Israel. The sacrificial service, that which made such meeting possible, and the priest, as the root of the word implies, he who brought Israel near to God. Hence prayer could only follow after the sacrifice, and its appropriate symbol and time was the burning of incense. It was long anticipated that Gentile believers would have a share in this. The Old Testament closes with these words from Malachi 1 verse 11, "From the rising of the sun, even to its setting, my name shall be great among the Gentile nations, and in every place frankincense is going to be offered to my name, and a grain offering that is pure, for my name shall be great among the nations, says the Lord of armies."
What a friend we have in Jesus, all our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. Oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pain we bear. All because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. Have we trials and temptations? Is there trouble anywhere? We should never be discouraged. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Can we find a friend so faithful, who will all our sorrow share? Jesus knows our every weakness. Take it to the Lord in prayer.
As I said before Brian's talk, if you'd like a transcript book of all these talks, you can download an online soft copy free of charge at churchesofgod.info/media. That's churchesofgod.info/media. The series is called This Is Our God, the Sacrificial Lamb. Now, if you prefer a hard copy book instead of downloading yourself, then please write and tell us, and we will post one out to you. Just ask for the book title, This Is Our God, and be sure to tell us your postal address. If you prefer to use our postal address, then it's Search for Truth, Hayes Press, The Barn, Flaxlands, Royal Wootton Bassett, Swindon, SN4 8DY, UK. If you prefer to use email, then our email address is sft@churchesofgod.info. Now, you might be interested to know that if you go to the website I just mentioned, that's churchesofgod.info/media, you can listen again to many of these broadcasts off air, that is by audio podcast or MP3 versions. So why not have a go and see what you can find to enjoy? So once again, thank you for your company with me today, and it's a privilege to share these studies with you, and we hope you're enjoying them. Next week, I hope you'll join me, because Brian will be looking at the actual timings of what happened during the Lord's crucifixion and comparing them with these Old Testament scriptures. So now I must bid you goodbye and very best wishes from our Bible teacher Brian, our producer David, our singers and me, John. So see you soon, and in the meantime, may God richly bless you.